Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. My name is Marco and I'm here to help you master your money and build your wealth. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the concept of time value of money and how it applies to you. Stay tuned. So the time value of money is a pretty easy concept. So I'm going to get into more technical, more formulas, more math later in this video. So it's going to be really fun for the math nerds. But to explain it very simply, let's get into a quick example of something that could very much happen to you in real life. So let's say, you win the lottery. Bob wins the lottery, he wins 10 grand. He can choose to either take the $10,000 winnings today, or he can choose to take the $10,000 winnings 2 years from now. What would you do? What should Bob do? Obviously, Bob is probably going to take the $10,000 today. That's what any human would do. 99.9% of us are going to take the winnings today, because it's pretty much common sense. Why would you wait 2 years? There's no reason to do that. So let me spice this up a little bit, and that way I can explain the time value of money concept to you. So instead of the $10,000 today, I'm going to outline basically 3 different scenarios. We're going to have $10,000 today. We're going to have $10,900 1 year from now. And then Bob will be able to take out $12,000 2 years from now, okay? So what should Bob do in this scenario? Well, that depends on what your money can earn you today in an investment vehicle or in a savings account, okay? What is your ROI going to be if you decide to take that money today? So what we're solving for in this problem is called the time value of money. So I'm just going to abbreviate that, excuse me. Time value of money, TVM, okay? Basically, the time value of money is saying that $1 today is worth more than $1 in the future due to its potential earning capacity. So to play off of this example, let's say that we can get a 10% savings rate in our savings account, risk-free, okay? So 10% interest rate guaranteed. That's going to be the math for this whole entire video, just so we can use easy numbers for math. After 1 year, Bob decides to take this money and put it in this bank account, earning him 10% a year, okay? So we know that this $10,000 just now earned basically $1,000 in interest, okay? So now going into year 2, Bob now has $11,000. So we'll just put that 11K down there. So that's 10 plus 1 gets him 11. So this $11,000 now becomes $12,100 because he just earned an additional $1,100 in interest. So does that make sense? So we know that just based on this, that if he decided to wait 2 years and take the 2 grand, he would have been out $100 based on what he could have earned if he would have saved the $10,000 today. If he would have chosen to take the $10,900 1 year from today, he would have been out $100 because it's worth $11,000, okay? So that is basically the time value of money in a nutshell. The big caveat with this is understanding what this variable is going to be. If you can have a guaranteed 10% rate of return over those 2 years in this example, then you're better off taking the money today and just investing it. You'll have more in the future because it's compounding on top of itself. Now, with this being said, let's get into the present and the future values of this money to give you another real-life example. Okay, so knowing these numbers now based on this interest rate, you can figure out 2 other things. It's knowing what the present value of the money is and what the future value is going to be. So say, for example, you're trying to figure out what the present value of a certain sum of money is. You're trying to figure out the current value of a future sum of money cash flows. So what is the formula for that? So this is going to get a little bit technical, but just follow me. It's pretty easy math once I explain what everything means. So to figure out what the present value is, you have PV equals FV, that's the future value, okay, divided by 1 plus the rate, which is R, to the nth power, okay? So if you just plug in these numbers using common sense like we already did, we have $12,100, which we know right here, okay, divided by 1 plus 0.10, that 0.1 is basically this 10% interest. Remember, this is a percentage. So 100% would be 1, 10% would be 0.1 to the nth power. So we know that we're doing this over the course of 2 years. If you plug this into a calculator, you know what you're going to get? $10,000. That's your answer. So we just figured out what the present value is of a future sum, okay? So pretty simple. Now, let's solve for future value. So future value is basically figuring out the value of an asset or cash at a specific date in the future, okay? So say we're looking at this 10 grand. The formula is this. Future value equals the investment, so we'll call this I. I'll draw it out like that so you can see it easier, times 1 plus R, the rate, to the power of T, the time periods, okay? So if we plug in what we already know, basically we're taking $10,000, that's our investment right here, times 1 plus our rate of return, which we know is 10%, to the power of 2, okay? And you know what that equals? We already figured it out. It's this, $12,100. So in the next part of this video, let me give you an example not using these numbers so you can see it fresh and understand how this actually works. So let's pretend your grandma, super old, she saved up a bunch of money for you for all the grandchildren, and each grandchild gets $50,000 upon grandma's death. So I hate to be morbid, I'm just trying to use a real life example for some people, okay? So you know you're gonna inherit 50 grand, okay? So let's erase all this, and that way I can run through these formulas with new numbers, and that way you can practice at home. Okay, we're going to stay with the 10% rate of return, whether it's a savings account, whether it's a Roth IRA, whatever. We're just pretending it's 10%, easy numbers. So let's figure out what the net present value is of $50,000. And let's just say, for example, grandma's going to die in 15 years. We don't know this for sure, but let's just say that's what ends up happening if we're looking at this in hindsight, okay? So we just take the formula that I described. We take the $50,000 divided by 1 plus the rate of return. We know it's going to be 10% based on our assumption, okay, to the number of periods. So in the comment section below, I want you to answer, what is the number of periods here if we know that grandma's going to die in 15 years? Okay, so I'll give you 2 seconds to answer. Do, 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 do. Or you can just pause the video. Well, we know that she's going to pass away in 15 years. We don't know that, we just know that from hindsight, okay? So, believe it or not, this is figuring out what this 50 grand is worth 15 years into the future today. Remember, we're trying to figure out the present value for this equation. So how much do you think this is worth? Try and figure this out at home. Pause the video. I'm going to tell you right now that it's worth $11,969. Okay, we just figured out the present value of 50 grand 15 years into the future if we're growing it at 10%. Okay, so it sounds like a lot of money, but it's only $12,000 in today's value. So when you're figuring out your retirement portfolio, you know, all these financial gurus, they say, I'll make you a millionaire, just invest all this money. Well, if you want to be really scared about your retirement savings or your Roth IRA or whatever, take what you think you're going to be at when you retire at the rate of return you think you're making, let's call it 7% over the number of years, and see what that's really worth in today's dollars. Okay, it'll kind of scare you there. So now let's do future value. So future value is pretty cool because it kind of shows you how compounding interest works. So let's say the future value of $50,000, let's say grandma, God forbid, dies today and you get that 50 grand, okay? So you get the 50 grand and you invest every penny of it. You don't need it, okay? So you take the 50,000 times 1 plus the rate. So we know the rate of return is 10%. We've already established this. To the power of 15, okay? Remember that it's this is what the investment would be worth 15 years from now if you just chose to invest it over 15 years. So do this math at home. Feel free to answer below if you want, or just do it in your head. This 50 grand, 15 years from now at 10% is worth $208,862, believe it or not. So that just shows you the power of compound interest. Obviously, a 10% return annually over 15 years is pretty difficult to achieve. Some say, the stock market has achieved that throughout the course of its history when you account for all the highs and the lows. But that's pretty much what this would be worth over 15 years. So I hope you got value out of this video. I know this one was a little bit more math intensive and a little bit more technical, but it's important to understand this stuff because time value of money is one of the first concepts you learn when you go to get your bachelor's degree in finance. This was literally one of the first concepts that I've ever learned. So if you want to learn a little bit more about investing in general, I do have an ebook. Well, it's kind of more like a summary book, if you will, about different investments that are available that we'll be launching in the next couple weeks. If you want to sign up for that, check the link below. And as always, share the video with one friend and hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you so much and have a prosperous day. No, Grandma. No. No. Hi, what are the new F-150s selling for? Oh, 50 grand? Okay, I'll be there right away. Thanks.